shooting outside of the varsity will move forward. Today, Lil Durk.
Even if you're not in a gang, this is your freedom at stake.
For years, federal agents quietly tracked Lil Durk, mapping his movements, monitoring his inner circle, and building a case tied to murder conspiracies, interstate shootings, and organized retaliation. Now, prosecutors have something that could change everything forever.
We would sit on the porch, we'd have been eating, but now since the violence got so crazy, it's like we gotta really be on point now.
His fame did not protect him, and his success did not erase his past, because behind the charts and sold-out shows, federal agents were building a case that they believed connected him directly to deadly violence.
That's before all the shooting was going on, like, we could do all that shit.
For most of his career, Durk lived inside two worlds at the same time, moving between fame and street politics, while federal agencies carefully watched how those two worlds overlapped. Investigators believed that his record label operation, Only for the Family, was not just a business brand, but a structure that protected, funded, and rewarded violent retaliation. Federal task forces tracked shootings, arrests, murders, and drug activity involving individuals closely tied to Durk's inner circle, slowly building a picture of an organization that operated beyond music.
Gunshots caught on video is hard to forget. The shooting, police believe, was committed by 4 people who jumped out of 2 cars on a busy Gold Coast street, traumatized shoppers, and killed.
The federal interest intensified after the murder of Chicago rapper FBG Duck in August 2020, a daylight shooting carried out in one of the most high-end shopping districts in the city. The killing shocked the nation and humiliated city leadership, as surveillance footage captured multiple shooters fleeing the scene while shoppers ran for safety. Federal prosecutors later charged several members of Durk's extended street network with planning and executing the attack, arguing that the murder was a targeted gang retaliation carried out with coordination, logistics, and financial backing. Although Durk was not immediately charged in the Duck case, federal investigators studied his communications, relationships, and financial connections, seeking to understand how deeply he was involved in the structure that carried out the hit. Wiretaps, phone data, social media activity, and cooperating witnesses all became pieces of a growing federal puzzle, one that slowly began to surround him.
Investigators are saying the shooting was aimed at Quando Rondo. Rondo's cousin was killed instead. Durk is charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
By 2022, that federal focus intensified dramatically following a deadly shooting in Las Vegas that killed Saviaya Robinson, the cousin of rapper Quando Rondo. Prosecutors alleged that the shooting was not random, but part of a revenge plot connected to long-running street feuds, with Durk at the center of the planning. According to federal indictments, investigators believe Durk ordered and financed a murder-for-hire operation designed to kill Quando Rondo, but instead resulted in the death of his cousin. The shooting took place outside a gas station in broad daylight, as surveillance cameras captured chaos erupting within seconds. Federal authorities described the attack as a coordinated interstate murder plot, crossing multiple jurisdictions, which instantly placed the case under federal authority.
Well, police arrested Grammy Award-winning rapper Lil Durk in Florida on federal charges that he paid for the attempted 2022 revenge killing of another rapper at a Los Angeles gas station.
In October 2024, federal marshals arrested Lil Durk in Florida, charging him with orchestrating the murder-for-hire scheme. The arrest marked the moment when years of federal surveillance finally became public, revealing how closely law enforcement had been monitoring his movements, finances, and communications. Prosecutors accused him of directing payments, issuing instructions, and coordinating logistics, using trusted associates as intermediaries to distance himself from the violence.
They potentially have a case they could beat because Durk was not there. He didn't buy any of the guns. There's no footage of him saying, "Go kill this guy."
The federal indictment outlined a structure that prosecutors claimed functioned like a criminal enterprise, where loyalty was enforced, retaliation was expected, and violence was rewarded. According to investigators, Durk did not operate alone, but relied on a tight circle of trusted individuals who carried out instructions, handled money, and coordinated travel, weapons, and communication. Federal authorities believe that Durk used coded language, indirect communication methods, and trusted intermediaries to issue instructions, knowing that his calls and messages could be monitored. They alleged that money was funneled through third parties, travel was arranged through associates, and weapons were sourced from outside networks to prevent direct connections.
And unless he gives up everything he owns and goes completely broke, there's a real fear of him potentially trying to silence witnesses and potentially kill people and so forth.
Prosecutors argue that Durk's music, public statements, and online activity also supported their claims, pointing to lyrics and posts that allegedly reference real-world violence, retaliation, and threats. While defense attorneys insist that rap lyrics are artistic expression, federal prosecutors maintain that in this case, those lyrics closely matched actual events, names, and timelines, making them relevant evidence. Federal courts also allow broader conspiracy charges, meaning prosecutors do not need to prove that Durk personally pulled the trigger, only that he knowingly directed or financed violent acts. This legal structure places enormous risk on anyone accused of leading criminal operations, especially when multiple cooperating witnesses are involved.
According to the complaint, Banks and his co-conspirators allegedly worked together to, quote, track, stalk, and attempt to murder a target at a Los Angeles gas station, firing at least 18 rounds into the person's vehicle.
As news of the indictment spread, the music industry reacted with shock, as one of the genre's most successful artists suddenly faced the possibility of permanent incarceration. For Durk's legal team, the strategy quickly became about challenging the credibility of witnesses, attacking the reliability of evidence, and exposing inconsistencies in the prosecution's timeline. Defense attorneys argued that cooperating witnesses were criminals seeking reduced sentences, whose testimony could not be trusted. They also insisted that the government was stretching connections, interpreting lyrics out of context, and relying too heavily on circumstantial evidence. Despite these arguments, federal prosecutors remained confident, citing financial records, travel data, phone location tracking, and surveillance footage as independent verification of witness statements. They argued that the evidence formed a consistent pattern that pointed directly to Durk's leadership role.
Like, at the time, I went in there really just counting my money, like, how much he could pay, how much he could pay. I was just like, through this whole time, I was just like blind. So
you probably had a big team too, right?
For Durk, the situation reflects a timeline trapped between survival and success, where escaping the streets physically did not mean escaping their psychological grip. His childhood trauma, family history, and constant exposure to violence shaped instincts that federal prosecutors now interpret as criminal leadership. While his defense argues that he is a product of his environment, federal law does not offer leniency for trauma when murder conspiracies are involved. In their eyes, responsibility begins where planning, funding, and coordination take over, regardless of past suffering. As the case moves through, Lil Durk remains in federal custody, awaiting trial for his alleged role in an interstate murder-for-hire plot. Every attempt to secure his release has failed, including a $4.5 million bail package, which the judge rejected due to the seriousness of the charges and concerns over public safety. By February 2026, the case had grown into one of the largest federal prosecutions in modern hip-hop history, with over 30,000 pages of evidence, including surveillance footage, phone tracking, financial records, travel data, and cooperating witness testimony. Due to its massive scale, the trial has been postponed multiple times and is now scheduled for April 21, 2026. In a major ruling, the judge approved the use of some of Durk's lyrics and social media posts as evidence, allowing prosecutors to argue motive and intent while excluding unrelated material. Although the government will not seek the death penalty, the conviction could still result in life in federal prison. As of now, Lil Durk sits in a federal detention center, waiting for a trial that could permanently end his freedom.